Do you remember when we were talking in English about the main idea and the supporting details about the main idea? Um, so what we're gonna do in reading is kind of base it off that. What we're gonna do, as you can see, I passed out worksheets with three boxes on them. Okay, one's for the main idea. The top one's for the main idea, as you can see, and the bottom two are for the supporting details. This is called a boxes and bullets. So we're going to play off this main idea and we're going to give reasons why we think that's the main idea. Today we'll be reading the book Maniac Magee by John Spelling. I love this book when I was growing up, so this is a little bit older than my time, but we'll try it out. I'm going to read a couple chapters. They're really short chapters, so we're going to go through it. We're going to go through this worksheet so we can work on it and basically give you an example of what I want when you do yours. Okay? So we're going to start this off. Maniac Magee was not born in a dump. He was born in a house, a pretty ordinary house, right across the river from here, in Bridgeport. And he had regular parents, a mother and a father, but not for long. Okay, so from that starting paragraph, what do you think is going to happen? Like, what can we infer? Jesse. Right, we can infer that something's going to happen to make him not be having a normal house. So let's keep reading, though. One day, his parents left him with a sitter and took the P&W high-speed trolley into the city. On the way back home, they were aboard when the P&W had its famous crash, when the motorman was drunk and took the high trestle over Schuylkill River at 60 miles an hour, and the whole caboodle took a swan dive into the water. And just like that, Maniac was an orphan. He was 3 years old. So let's think about this, guys. Has anybody lost their parents when going shopping or something? Right. What do you feel when you do that? Scared, worried. Yep. Let's keep reading, though. Of course, to be accurate, he wasn't really a maniac then. He was Jeffrey Lionel Magee. Little Jeffrey was shipped off to his nearest relatives, Aunt Dot and Uncle Dan. They lived in Hollidaysburg in the western part of Pennsylvania. Aunt Dot and Uncle Dan hated each other, but because they were strict Catholics, they would not get a divorce. Around the time Jeffrey arrived, they stopped talking to each other. Then they stopped sharing. Pretty soon, there was two of everything in the house. 2 bathrooms, 2 TVs, 2 refrigerators, 2 toasters. If it was possible, they would have had 2 Jeffreys. As it was, they split them up the best they could. For instance, he would eat dinner with Aunt Dot on Mondays, with Uncle Dan on Tuesdays, and so on. Would this be a good house for a little child? He's about 3 to 4. No, right? They're trying to split them up evenly so each other don't get mad at each other. Right. 8 years of that. Could you believe that? 8 years? That's a crazy amount of time. Then came the night of the spring musical at Jeffrey's school. He was in the choir. When there was only one show and one auditorium. So Aunt Dot and Uncle Dan were forced to share at least that much. Aunt Dot sat on one side, Uncle Dan on the other. Jeffrey probably started screaming from the start of the song, which was "Talk to the Animals." But nobody knew it because he was drowned out by all the other voices. The music ended and Jeffrey went on screaming, his face bright red by now, his neck bulging. The music director faced the singers, frozen with his arms still raised. In the audience, faces began to change. There was a quick smacker of giggling by some people who figured the screaming kid was somehow part of the show. Some funny animal, maybe. Then the giggling stopped. And eyes started to shift, and heads started to turn, because now everybody could see that this was not part of the show at all. That little Jeffrey Magee was not supposed to be up there on the risers, pointing to his aunt and his uncle below, out from the midst of the crowd. Chorus. Talk! Talk, will you? Talk! 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 No one knew it then, but this was the birth scream of a legend. And that's when the running started. Sorry about that, kids. Their springy steps down from the riser, girls in pastel dresses, screaming, the music director launching a leap from the stage, out to the side door into the starry, sweet, onion grass smelling night, never again to return to the house of the two hosters, never again to return to school. So, Maniac just took off, right, guys? He just ran. He was sick of it. He was tired of it. He ran. So let's keep going on where he ran to. Everybody knows that Maniac McGee, then Jeffrey, started out in Hollidaysburg and wound up in Two Mills. The question is, what took him so long? And what did he do along the way? Sure, 200 miles is a long way, especially on foot, but the year it took him to cover it was about 51 weeks too many. Figuring the way he could run, even then. So he took a year to run 200 miles. Now you might say that's a decent amount, but that's not really. If he was stagnantly running, but could he do that? Could he run throughout day and night? Of course not. He was sleeping, he got tired. Of course, everybody gets tired, right, kids? The legend doesn't have an answer. That's why this period is called the lost year. Another question, why did he stay there? Why Two Mills? Of course, there was an obvious answer that was sitting right across the skull he killed is Bridgeport, where he was born. Yet, there are other theories. Some say he just got tired of running. Some say it was the butterscotch crimpets. And some say he only intended to pause here, but stayed because he was so happy to make a friend. If you listen to everybody who claims to see Jeffrey Maniac McGee that first day, there must have been 10,000 people and a parade of fire trucks waiting for him at the town limits. Don't believe it. A couple people truly remember, and here's what they saw. A scraggly little kid jogging towards them, the soles of both sneakers hanging by the hinges, a floppy open like dog tongues, each time they came up from the pavement. So, he's alone, right? He's alone. He's alone for a year. He doesn't have any change of clothes. And obviously, what do you guys think? He's dirty, right? He's dirty. He's going to be dirty. His sneakers are going to be worn out. That's just what happens. But it was something they heard that made him stick in their minds all these years. As he passed them, he said, "Hi." Just that. Hi. And he was gone. They stopped, they blinked, they turned, they stared after him. They wondered, do I know that kid? Because people just didn't say that to strangers out of the blue. As for the first person to actually stop and talk with Maniac, that would be Amanda Beale. And it happened because of a mistake. It was around 8 in the morning, and Amanda was heading for grade school, like hundreds of other kids all over town. What made Amanda different was that she was carrying a suitcase, and that's what caught Maniac's eye. He figured she was running her way like him. So he stopped and said hi. Amanda was suspicious. Who was this white stranger? And what was he doing in the East End, where almost all the kids were black? And why was he saying that? So she's a little sketched out because she's on the eastern side, and that's where the African American community is, right? There's not a lot of white people around there, right? And like we talked about, he doesn't look the best. He's not very spiffy. Like, his shoes are falling off. He's dirty. Like, she was suspicious, and I understand why, right, guys? But Amanda Beale was so friendly. So she stopped and said hi back. "Are you running away?" Jeffrey asked her. "Huh?" said Amanda. Jeffrey pointed to the suitcase. Amanda frowned, then thought, then laughed. She laughed so hard she began to lose her balance, so she set her suitcase down and sat on it so she could laugh more safely. When at last she could speak, she said, "I'm not running away. I'm going to school." She saw the puzzlement on his face. She got off the suitcase, then opened it up right there on the sidewalk. Jeffrey gasped, "Books!" Books, all right. Both sides of the suitcase crammed with them. Dozens of more than anyone would ever need for homework. Jeffrey fell to his knees. He and Amanda and the suitcase were like rocks in a stream. The schoolgoers just flowed to the left and the right of them. He turned his head this way and that to read the titles. He lifted the books on top to see the ones beneath. There was fiction, nonfiction, who did it, and let's be friend books, and what is it books, and how to books, and how not to books, and just regular kid books. On the bottom was a single volume from the encyclopedia. It was the letter A. "My library," Amanda Beale said proudly. Someone called, "Gonna be late for school, girl." Amanda looked up. The street was almost deserted. She slammed the suitcase shut, starting to hauling it along. Jeffrey took the suitcase from her. "I'll carry it for you." Amanda's eyes shot wide. She hesitated, then snatched it back. "Who are you?" she said. "Jeffrey McGee." "Where are you from? West End?" "No." She stared at him at his flap-soled sneakers. Back in those days, the town was pretty much divided. The East End was black, the West End were white. "I know you're not from the East End." So, like we were saying, she's from the East End, and that's a different community than, like it said, the East End were blacks, the West End were white. They didn't really convert to one side or the other. "I'm from Bridgeport." "Bridgeport over there? That Bridgeport?" "Yep." "Well, why aren't you there?" "It's where I'm from, not where I am." "Great, so where do you live?" Jeffrey looked around. "I don't know. Maybe here?" So, as she's asking him all these questions, he doesn't really have a plan, as you can tell. He doesn't have a plan. "Maybe." Amanda shook her head and chuckled. "Maybe you better go ask your mom and father if you live here or not." Now, do you think that comment was very nice of Amanda? No. It was really snotty. Right, Caleb. She sped it up. Jeffrey dropped back for a second, then caught up with her. "Why are you taking all these books to school?" Amanda told him. She told him about her little brother and sister at home, who loved to crayon every piece of paper they could find, whether it or not it already had typing all over it, and about the dog Bow Wow, who chewed everything he could get his teeth on. And that, she said, was why she carried her whole library to and from school every day. First bell was ringing. The school was still a block away. Amanda ran. Jeffrey ran. "Can I have a book?" he said. "They're mine," she said. "Just to read, to borrow." "No." "Please, what's your name?" "Amanda." "Please, Amanda. Anyone. You're shortest one. I'm late now, and I'm not going to stop to open up this thing again. Forget it." He stopped. "Amanda!" She kept running, then stopped, then turned, glared. What kind of kid was this anyway? All grungy, ripped shirt. Why didn't he go back to Bridgeport or the West End where he belonged? Bother some white girl up there. And why was he still standing there? "So if I loan you one, how am I going to get it back?" "I'll bring it back, honest, if it's the last thing I do. What's your address?" 728 Sycamore. "But you can't come there. You can't even be here." So she was kind of like, "No, you can't come to my house. No, you can't come here." Why? Right, because he was different. He was different. He was all grungy. He was white. It just didn't look good for the community. She stopped, turned. "Ooh," she squealed. She tore a book from her suitcase, hurled it at him. "Here," and dashed into school. The book came flapping like a wounded duck and fell at Jeffrey's feet. It was a story of a children's crusade. Jeffrey picked it up, and Amanda Beale was late for school for the only time in her life. All right, guys. So what was the main idea? Right. That he was different. He wasn't perfect. He was in different situations he was not supposed to be in. Right. He was And these are some of the supporting ideas, so you might want to write these down. He was cringy. His shirt was ripped. His shoes were all torn. And when he was on the east side with Amanda, you could tell she didn't want to talk to him because he was white. He was different. And is that the way we treat people? No. No, no, no. And he was alone. His parents died when he was 3. Yeah, and he left his aunt and uncle because he couldn't live like that. And no child should live like that. So, today we're going to be doing, as you can see, I gave you 2, and that wasn't a mistake on my part. We gave you 2 because I want you to write the main ideas and the supporting details of your chapter of your book that we're going to read today. It's an independent book, so you guys can just keep reading what you're reading. And we do have about 30 minutes to go up until recess time. So please get comfy, find your book, relax, and I will be going around and doing conferences and talking to you guys and helping you out with worksheets. If you have a question, please raise your hand.